Welcome to Inside the Bunker. I'm your host, Chris Carter. I have Jessica Morgan with me tonight, and our special guest is Mr. Joe Heck. How are you, sir?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Dude, so good. It's really good to see you, dude.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us tonight. We're going to talk about episode 3. So there's so much goodness I want to say about your performance, but also that last maybe minute of episode 3. But before I do that, I want to ask you, do you remember that day that we shot? Do you remember like how it went? What are your memories? And I know it was a while ago of that day.
No. It's actually a really fun memory for me because we were shooting just when the pandemic was starting, I believe. Mm-hmm. But we all had the masks and we were all very careful, but it was I remember us walking way out into the woods and being worried about, now there's a possibility that there may be bears.
That was always Chris.
If we see a bear, we may have to pull out, but
that's Chris. Every single time, I swear, he's got this thing about bears. We can't go for any hike, go out anywhere without him being like, bears.
No, I was kind of excited about it. I was kind of hoping I'd be like, we saw a deer though. That was beautiful.
That story is
a majestic moment.
So that's an amazing story. Okay, Chris, do you want to tell this one? Because
I got to tell a story, but also
from your perspective.
Joe, I'm glad you brought that up because bears are a real fucking. There can be a menace, okay? And I was looking at
a serious issue.
Yeah, bears are a serious issue, and so. But the story you're talking about, I tell this story to anybody that's about to go into the forest. So we're in there, we're hiking, we've got to our spot. And so we had to hike up this hill because we want to be off the trail because, Joe has a gun and we don't want to, we don't want to scare anybody. Yeah. We wanted to, so we went up this hill, which I thought we were in a pretty good spot. We were there pretty early in the morning. And when we get settled, we start hearing, shuffling around and, it's the kind of shuffling that can only be made by something moving. It wasn't like a branch falling. It was something moving. And so we all just kind of got real still and just kind of, let's figure this out. And it kept happening. And then I remember clear as day, looking up towards, another part of the forest and seeing this hindquarters and a tail. And I'm like, fuck, it's a fucking bear. And so in this moment that all this is happening, right? And it is dead silent. I was scared. Brittany behind me whispers, "Oh my God." And so to me, I was like, fuck, she's right. This is how I led these people to their death. It was all these terrible things happened. And I swear to God, Joe, I was terrified. I couldn't have been more scared.
I think I remember seeing your face change and it was putting the blood into my hair, making me look like ready for an attraction to a bear. A perfect. And you're like, I think there's a bear. I'm like, what's up?
What?
Bear? Oh my God!
You handled it well. You were.
I didn't. I did not.
Pinnacle of composure.
I was gonna say maybe internally.
Well, maybe
outside you were better,
externally, maybe internally. I was like, there was a house of bricks,
and thankfully we had Dustin there because Dustin was the one who was finally like, "I'm gonna go check it out," and I was like, "Dustin,
you're like a McNugget for this bear, bro. It's like you would have been a snack for this thing." So, but yeah.
Yeah. But instead they cleared like the bushes and stuff. And it was not a bear. It was a deer. And wasn't it a baby deer too? It was it
was so majestic. It was
beautiful.
Maybe it was a mom and a baby. I think it was two.
So yeah.
It was.
I think it was a mom and a baby.
And they were grazing. And then they kind of started coming down. They were never coming at us.
They were coming
checking
us out.
They were definitely checking us out.
He didn't run away, but they were kind of taking us. I thought it was a good omen for the shoot.
Yeah, definitely that.
They were interested in what we were doing, so it was like, okay, we must be doing something good.
Right.
We made our first 2 fans of the show.
Yeah,
I know. I just wanted to compliment again. Just it's so hard to shoot and make anything, but just going outside with literally 2 people as crew, and you're on camera. It just got doing all the makeup and all of the stuff, and Dustin is doubling as a corpse, and then coming back up and
sound.
doing
The
sound. Yeah. And I'm like, it's such a feat to make anything, but it's so incredible to do it on that scale, but it makes it so fun to do.
Dude, but I'm so glad that you brought up that experience, because you're right. It's hard. And I mean, you guys are filmmakers too. I mean, you and Katie are filmmakers. So, having solid crew, having actors who are ready to kind of roll with it, you know what I mean? All that stuff, it needs to happen. Otherwise, your shoot can go from good to terrible real quick. And so that's really a compliment to you, Joe, and to Brittany that day, and to everybody that we worked with, because I don't think, knock on wood, well, we didn't, because now it's over, that we had problems like that. It was always just a really good experience with everybody being positive, and like you said, just Dustin's ass is a character in this, you know what I mean? So it's like his posterior,
it's a great ass.
He knows it. He's got a great ass.
It does the work. It does the majority.
Right. But it was just so cool. And always to have people that are down to get up early, to hike into the woods. And you're right. That was when there was no cure for COVID, I think, going around at that point. And at that point, you just had to be tested and then wear the mask. So, and thank you for sticking that out with us too, man, because, it was just a weird time filming during 2020, and it was just rough. But I will say, Joe, I always had you in mind for this character. And, there was a time when I had asked you way back before we even knew that this was going to be basically a 2-person scene, that it was going to be bigger. There was going to be 4 people at one point, but I just loved what you did with your face and the way you emoted, with just using your eyes and your facial expression. And was that challenging now? Because I remember saying that you couldn't be too loud, right? Because we're in the forest and we didn't want to attract a lot of attention.
Gosh, I remember that note. Don't yell. And you're like, wait. I'm having basically a psychotic break, but don't get too noisy.
We don't want any vigilante hunters taking me down. I got a gun pointed at me.
There he is.
Really well, and she's really responding well. No, I like to internalize everything I do. I really enjoyed working off the scene, and Brittany was feeding off of it. So I didn't think any yelling or anything was even necessary. From what I had interpreted from the script, it was an intimate moment, and it wasn't a moment of rage. It was a moment of despair and giving up, and that you can lash out and rage in those moments, or you can just kind of intake. I just took it as the character with the lines that he had, just making the decision and not wanting to hurt her, but kind of knowing the jig is up, but maybe there would have been a more merciful thing to articulate what was going on to help her out. The internal thing that I had put in was that it was Dustin. It was a brother relationship, and that they had gone through their own sort of, I don't know, Last of Us, Dawn of the Dead situation, their own beats and their own story, and that their story was ending as hers was beginning, and he had given up, and that was his personal tragedy or something.
My God, that's a fucking wonderful to read on that. That's way better than I could have written.
So Chris is going to write a prequel to this.
Yeah. We're going to get you and Dustin together. And
now we have to give you a story credit.
But most of it was just Brittany bouncing off and the vulnerability in her eyes as well. And she was such a good scene partner to work with that I didn't really have to do anything. I just thought she was really good. And I was also just kept asking Jessica, thinking do I look like I'm holding this gun like someone else? Because I don't want to look like a doof. But
I know. I think we even talked about position of where we would put the gun and stuff, and especially because of the gag and everything. It was one of those where you were and you're like, yeah, I think temple. I think that's where we go, is we do temple. And I was like, that makes sense. None of us have thought about shooting ourselves in the head before, so I guess that's a good thing.
Talking about Gonzo style, that is the most cool prop thing that I've ever done, with the entangling the thing in the hair.
Oh my God.
When I saw that shot, it was amazing.
It turned out so good.
How you guys were able to pull that off is so.
Oh my gosh. Cause when I think back to that day, I go, oh my gosh, poor Joe. Like you're just like, there was just this time of being like, just so many of us, all of our hands like us, in your hair, just trying to like pin this thing in. Someone's holding it over here and doing this. And like, you know, and it's just, this moment that I look back on sometimes and I go, oh my gosh, like you were such a trooper, because I think there are other people who, if they had been in your situation, would have been like, it's just not gonna work, guys. Like, just stop.
I would be that guy. I'm like, this isn't gonna work, guys. Like, yeah.
No, I love it, and it was such a, and I want to thank you all so much because again, during COVID, there's no acting to be done, and I was so grateful just to have an opportunity to do it because I enjoy doing it.
The gag itself was one of those things where it looked so cool, and the way that last like minute of episode 3, the one you know, when you're just kind of got the eyes, and you can see it in your eyes when you make the decision to be like, you know what, it's like you said, my story is ending, yours is beginning. Let me just check out this way, and so it totally reads like that. And then we have the shot, and again, it's done wonderfully on the effects side too. And I know that we had to change the angle because, you know, we had the gag, you know what I mean? Because at one point, I think Jessica would know us better. Do you know what shot that would made the final cut? Because we did this twice or 3 times. Do you remember?
I think it was 3. Do you remember?
I thought it was.
I feel like
3.
It might be 3 too. Yeah, I was gonna say. I definitely know. Like, I've seen one of the takes too, where it just didn't work. Like it was like, and I think that was like the first one. And I remember even like in that moment being like, oh my God, if this doesn't work after we finally got it in his hair, after like lugging everything up here, like I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And kudos to you too, because I think like doing everything you were doing acting wise. And then of course, like now we're telling you to specifically like take this step and to get like centered. Yeah. And then I also gave you the trigger technically that you had to do to like get to like blast off that, because I was like, okay, like it's going to be too hard for us to like coordinate this. Like you just, when you pull it, this is it, you know? Yeah. But that's a lot to give somebody, and especially for that moment. And you just handled it like so flawlessly. Like you didn't seem too fazed by it at all. Like, and it was just, I was like, okay, good. Cause I've been on the other side where like, I've had to like do something really technical while trying to be in a moment. And it's so hard sometimes. It's so like,
that's the part that's unromantic, but it's still so fun to do. But it's like, okay. But I would keep asking, like, wait, do I step with my right foot or do I? Here's the big moment. Here's the big collapse into despair. But wait, left foot or right? I don't remember.
Like in watching it, of course, like you have no idea that like this moment that goes by so quick, it's like all the setup that it takes and all the like specific little, every movement and stuff. You're like, everything has to work so flawlessly basically for it to like come to what it is. And then when you see it, you're like, so it's literally like half a second take, like, you know, like for it to go off. And it's this tiny little sequence, but it's so important clearly. I mean, that's why we decided to do 3 episodes released at one time, was because I was like, we will literally end with a bang.
And I like doing the beginning. I like the living in the world before, and where you just sort of see the things are starting to go awry. And that's usually some of my favorite stuff before the big bad hits, the tension shift in the air. It's usually one of my favorite parts of these kind of projects. And I think it's really cool in these first 3 episodes.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you said that, because I think as a storyteller, you really will kind of want to find that balance, right? Because I mean, I think there's a saturation right now, and I'm sure, Joe, you being the horror connoisseur that you are, you can see it, of where we're kind of like in post-apocalyptic, you know, everywhere right now. You can't throw a rock and it's something that's not post-apocalyptic, but there's that transition period, that membrane, when how everything's kind of happening, and you know, the transition of where it's going. I think there's a lot more interesting things that happen in that window. The choices that people make, the way people check out or decide to kind of, you know, leave whatever plane that they're on or whatever they see happening. There's a lot of really interesting stories to mine out there. But I'm so glad you brought that up and made that distinction, because it really was something that I was thinking about when I was writing this. And there's, again, so many stories to mine out, and especially in the vignette of your character in episode 3, we see what is going to happen to society, and this dude's kind of right at the bell curve of seeing it. I'm just so happy with 3. And I want to talk about Jessica, how did we get that piece? Because I don't even know. I was doing something else. And how did we mount this thing onto Joe's head?
I was going to say, like, even you saying like you didn't know, I was like, again, so the way that me and Chris like work a lot is like this isn't always the case, but when it comes to like effects, we get to a point where, of course, it's written in the script first. It's just whatever is in his head, he writes, you know what I mean? And then it's like we start to like practically look at it. And if it gets too complicated, Chris is usually the first one to be like, okay, calm down, let's simplify it. Like we'll like get rid of this, or we'll just do what we got to do.
It's just so thick, to be honest. It's hard to make it through.
Okay. Well then, hey, if that's what we got, we got. We're not gonna linger on that.
And I'm usually the one pushing for like, no, let's push it. Like, let's really try to go for it this time and things like that. And so knowing that, and knowing this was the first time we were doing something like this, where this was like the blood cannon squib thing that we were going to attach to your head and do this, I knew very much that I was going to have Chris like on this like line. Like, I think I pitched it to him and he was like, how is that going to work? I'm not sure it's going to work. Like, are you going to be able to attach it to his head? And I remember even having a panic moment of being like, because of course with COVID and stuff, I was like, oh my God, does Joe still have long hair? Like I had this moment of like, oh no, what if he cut his hair off? Everyone's changing their hair during COVID. Like, so like, I remember even having a moment of being like, we need to ask if he has long hair still. So we're like trying to get it on your head and having a hard time. And it's like, and I just knew, I was like, if he sees me struggling at all with this, it's gonna start to weigh on it. Like his director, if he's done mind, is gonna be like, okay, we can't keep wasting time. We gotta just move on. We gotta like, yeah.
So you seem pretty under control. You seemed like you had got it pretty under control.
Well, that's good. And I did prepare really well for that one. I did, because I knew we weren't gonna have, we couldn't have you over earlier to like rehearse it, or like, I just knew we weren't gonna have that. And so I did. So we basically like folded up his hair and like stuck it in there, and then like, kind of just got it pinned in and then covered it up very calmly.
It was one of the coolest things I ever gotten to do. It was such a cool effect. It was, and everybody who I have seen it's been like, good God, which is a great reaction to, I guess, like the brains out.
I know, even for me, because I was, behind you the whole time, like holding this like contraption while you're like doing your thing. So it's like, I didn't even get to necessarily see how it looked every time, for it. So I the same way I still had like fears about like, oh gosh, we're going to get home and then you're going to see the thing in his hair or something this whole time. It's going to be so obvious. So I'm so happy it turned out the way it did, because
And I did feel bad for Brittany, but it was fun to watch. But it was cold. It was a cold day, but her getting the blood splatter on the face after I had
twice too.
Twice.
It looked good both times, but like,
it did.
No, she took that very well. I don't know. It was cold, and it was some cold blood. Yeah. I hope that didn't ruin your shirt. Or actually, that might have been like a shirt. You're like, you need to have a shirt that you're willing to lose. Because I think I did. I threw away that shirt was toast covered.
We
try.
We try to warn everybody. We're like,
and use easy wash blood. It's true, but you bring up a good point that people probably don't know, that we shot that scene twice, and I swear I think that the take that we used was the second one.
For Brittany,
for Brittany. So imagine, for people that don't know, I mean, she gets hit with the same amount of blood. It falls differently on the second take. So, we have to clean her off, make sure that there's no blood you can kind of determine has already been on here, and then take it from the top again. So that was, the crew on that did such a fantastic job to get her in a position so that we could even have because a lot of times you won't get a second go at that. It's like, hey, you got one shot at it. That's it. So
yes,
so the fact that we got two, and then, and like you're saying, Joe, she was a trooper and kind of stood in there and got hit in the face twice with cold, wet blood on a cold day. It's like, man, I mean, it was great. The last minute of that episode for me is probably one of my favorite piece of photography that I've done since I've been filming, because with your performance and the way that the blood kind of catches Brittany and her performance, in the script, we were going to cut to black as soon as, the blood hit her face, but we let her play a couple more seconds and she didn't break. She stayed in it. So, that minute of time when we see you make the decision, we see the blood gag, we see the blood hit her face, and she kind of play in that moment is probably, I mean, it's in the top 3 of things that I've filmed in my career to date. So it was just a cool experience. And you guys just were so fucking good in that episode. And everybody is, but specifically, we knew that we wanted to end at episode 3 the way we did because of how good it was. Right. I mean,
it's a cool moment. And it's that final shot of her. She really sticks that landing. She's really good. She was so fun to work with. I like Brittany a lot. She's a great person. But it was cool to shoot, and I enjoyed it immensely. During the time it was so fun to act again, and it just was really great to do.
I don't know if this thing would have been a web series if we didn't have COVID in a sense, because it's like, it really forced us to be like, oh my, like to just stop and be like, we have this footage, we have this thing, and we've wanted to put this out, and like, we're getting stuck again. Because we had planned to shoot that second part, like this in 2020, we'd been like, nope, 2020 is the year, we're going to shoot this, we're going to do it. And it was, 2020 happens. So, but I'm so happy now because it's like, as a web series, I think this thing works great. I think it's going great so far, and I'm really excited for it. And
it was such a great thing to do during that time, especially. And I'm really grateful for that, and for you guys. And
thank you.
For my girlfriend Katie for introducing me to you guys.
Your girlfriend, Katie Powers Mahard, is she's in another episode that's coming up and stuff. So and you showed up that day that we were filming that part.
Yes.
And just to be there basically. And which was, of course, we then put you to work because we're like, oh cool, extra hands. Like
that was fun.
We were just like, throw them in there. But that, I mean, in that sense, it's like, we did get to meet you. And then we were like, well, if he's down for this, then actually he probably wants to act. I mean, he's an actor. So
and I love doing the crew too. I just like doing any part of the creative process. And I enjoy watching her act because she's great too. And I just,
And I love hearing about the story of Chris, like, literally, I think you were helping Katie read for Dustin's film or something, but and him just like hearing you read that part and just immediately being like, so you're our hiker, right? Like like the first time we got to see you act, and him just being like pouncing on it, so
I loved it. But I love doing that project too. I want to thank you both for having me, and thank you both for putting me in it, and working with Brittany. I want to thank her, and Dustin as well, for being my corpse brother in my mind story. But I'm just incredibly grateful, and it was really fun to do. And
that's awesome, man. And like I always say, man, like we say, it's a baptism. Once you've been covered in blood in one of our films, you're always going to have a spot in any one of the ones coming up. So,
well, I'll take it. I'll take all the blood I can get. Thank you.
Right. Fair enough. Jessica, do you want to tell everybody?
Everyone just needs to stay tuned because we're going to get a new episode every Friday. You can either catch it at omegawebseries.com, or you can follow the Carter Inc. Films YouTube page. We also have Instagram and Facebook, so follow for any updates on there. You'll get behind the scene pictures and stuff like that. So keep up with us.
I love it.
Y'all. Thank you for
watching. Thank you, guys.
Whatever.
Watching, listening.
For everything.
I killed the buzz. We were riding high. We were going to get out of here, and I screwed it up. I'm sorry.
We're still at it.
Do the outro again. Do it again.
No, we're not doing it
again.
Word. All right, guys. Have a good night, guys. Thanks again, Joe. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much.
Bye.